in addition to exposure, if I want to build capacity, aside exposure or in addition to exposure, how can I build my leadership capacity? I've learned that exposing myself is important. What else can I do to ensure that I move to a higher level on that ladder of leadership? 2 is knowledge. Knowledge. One of the very vital capacity building factors or tools in leadership is gaining knowledge or having access to knowledge. So then, our question is, what is knowledge? What is knowledge? Let me read one definition from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. What is knowledge? Merriam-Webster says that the fact or condition of being aware of something. The fact or condition of being aware of something. Now, the understanding we are having here is you are gaining knowledge you did not have before. You are going to become aware of something you were previously not aware of. When knowledge comes, knowledge builds your capacity, knowledge increases your capacity, knowledge expands your capacity. Because in knowing, you are accumulating facts. Because Merriam-Webster says that it is the fact or condition of being aware of something. So when you increase in knowledge, you increase in awareness of things you were not aware of previously. That definitely increases your capacity. I'm going to read 3 portions of scripture. 3 portions of scripture. 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 13. 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 13. Paul says that till I come, give attendance to reading, to exhortation, to doctrine. Second scripture, 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 13. He says, the cloak that I left at Troas with Carpus, when thou comest, bring with thee and the books, but especially the parchments. All these are things that will give Paul access to knowledge. In 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 5, what did Peter say? Peter said that, and beside this, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, and to virtue knowledge. And beside this, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, and to virtue knowledge. There is something Abraham Lincoln said. He said that, I do not think much of a man who is not wiser today than he was yesterday. I do not think much of a man who is not wiser today than he was yesterday. So Abraham Lincoln seems to therefore imply the necessity of continuous and daily acquisition of knowledge. So he said, I don't think much of a man who is not wiser today than he was yesterday. What is he saying? He's saying that it is possible to be wiser today than you were yesterday. And it is possible to be wiser tomorrow than you are yesterday. How? By gaining access to knowledge. When you increase your knowledge, you increase your capacity. But let me point something to us. I want to talk about 2 types of knowledge. 2 types of knowledge. Now, I want you to follow carefully. There is what I call foundational knowledge. Foundational knowledge. Sometimes I refer to it as primary knowledge. I'm going to explain these 2 types of knowledge because these types of knowledge are actually relevant for our capacity building. So the first is what I call foundational knowledge or primary knowledge. Now, primary knowledge is actually knowledge that is directly related to your field. Primary knowledge is knowledge that is directly related to your field. You cannot do without this knowledge. So primary knowledge, or what I call foundational knowledge, is that knowledge that is connected to your field. Let me give some examples. If you are an engineer, you are expected to know engines. That is primary foundational knowledge. You don't have an excuse to know about engines. If you are a painter is expected to know colors. That is primary foundational knowledge. No debating about that. Third example, a banker is expected to know currencies. If you're a banker, you should understand currencies. 4, a pastor is expected to know the Bible. So to the engineer, the knowledge about engines is foundational knowledge or primary knowledge. To the painter, the knowledge about colors is foundational or primary knowledge. To the banker, the knowledge about currencies or the knowledge of currencies is foundational knowledge or primary knowledge. And to the pastor, the knowledge of the Bible is actually his foundational knowledge or primary knowledge. Now, for this, many people are usually exposed to it. There's another type of knowledge that I refer to as auxiliary knowledge, or sometimes I call it peripheral knowledge, which can also be referred to as secondary knowledge. So there is the foundational or primary knowledge, and then there is the auxiliary, or when we say auxiliary, what we mean by auxiliary is optional knowledge. Now, what is secondary knowledge? Secondary knowledge isn't directly related to your field. You can do without this knowledge. Secondary knowledge isn't directly related to your field. You can do without this knowledge. However, you are better situated to lead when you have access to this knowledge. It gives you an edge over others in the field. I'm reading what I wrote down again. Auxiliary, peripheral, or secondary knowledge isn't directly related to your field. You can do without this knowledge. However, you are better situated to lead when you have access to this knowledge. It gives you an edge over others in the field. I'm going to give us some examples that I put down. Recently, I watched an interview that Pastor Matthew Ashimolowo had after a conference in which he ministered in Nigeria. And then he mentioned that when he was actually sent by his church then to London, the Foursquare Gospel Church, when he was sent by them to pastor in London, he observed that being from Nigeria, he was actually exposed to the Nigerian culture. But this is a Nigerian person who has now been sent to pastor a church in London, a people of a different and diverse culture from what he's used to. So what did he do? He saw it wise to gain knowledge. Do you know the knowledge he gained? He actually said that you can't minister to a people you don't understand. So he actually studied the sociology of Britain. Now, a pastor being sent to pastor a church in London, studying the sociology of Britain, this is not basic foundational primary knowledge. He is not expected to study the sociology of Britain to be a successful pastor. This is under auxiliary or peripheral or secondary knowledge. It means that in gaining this knowledge, he will have an edge over the typical Nigerian pastor who has been sent to pastor in London, yet doesn't understand the culture of London. That pastor may not be able to effectively relate with the people. He'll be pastoring all right, full of grace, full of the gift of the Spirit, but there will be a deficiency somewhere. This is auxiliary knowledge, and many people are actually not aware of the importance of auxiliary knowledge. I put down 3 examples. 1, a pastor can gain knowledge in psychology. What is psychology? Merriam-Webster says it is the science of mind and behavior. So a pastor can actually gain knowledge of psychology to increase his or her effectiveness in handling church members. So when a pastor understands some part of psychology or something about psychology, he knows how to relate with people because he knows I'm pastoring people. God has called me as a shepherd to shepherd people. How do people behave? There is a course called psychology, which has to do with the science of mind and behavior. Different human beings have different behaviors. So why don't I, if I have some time, why don't I just read something little about, if I can't do courses, read something little about psychology to understand how people behave, to facilitate my leadership in this church over the people God has made me a shepherd over. Second example, a head of an institution can actually read some little sociology. That is the science of society, social institutions, and social relationships from Merriam-Webster. what will this do? It will increase his or her effectiveness in running the institution, because the institution is a society. So when I understand societies, maybe I have a master's in education, that's great. But if I get something little in sociology, will it not help with my leading this institution with thousands of people? That will fall under auxiliary or peripheral, so-called secondary knowledge. Third example, a pupil teacher can read pediatrics, a branch of medicine, also from Merriam-Webster, a branch of medicine dealing with the development, care, and diseases of infants, children, and adolescents. What will it do? It will help for him to effectively, him or her to effectively lead his or her class. So someone is a pupil teacher pastoring young children. Can I study something about children? Maybe I'm even teaching maths. Maybe I'm teaching grade 1 maths or grade 2 maths or grade 3 maths or grade 4 maths. Okay, there's a way children behave. Okay, why don't I read something about children's behavior? It may help me appreciate the way the children behave in class. Because sometimes when I come to class, the children behave in a certain way, they seem not to respond when I'm teaching. But I know I'm a good maths teacher. Maybe I even have a master's in maths, but I just want to teach grade 1 to 5 students because that's my passion. So even though I have a master's and I can work in other places, I want to teach these kids. So when I gain knowledge of these kids, of how they behave, I'll better appreciate why they do what they do. Maybe by gaining that knowledge, I will change my style of teaching. That, oh, maybe at this age, it would be better to teach them visually. So why don't I use pictures to teach them? Why don't I cause them to imagine when I'm teaching? So you see, you can be a good maths teacher, but if you don't know the people you are teaching, you may not be effective. So we have these two types of knowledge, the foundational knowledge and the auxiliary knowledge. And it's important to have both of these.